Hello, BookTube. I have a Friday mail haul for you. It's exactly half as many packages as there were yesterday, which means I'm only half as interesting. But we'll go through them and we'll see if maybe there's something to talk about. Because I'm in the habit of opening my mail with you. So let's see what this first one is. What have we here? Something from Yale. Okay. Okay. First one is a hit out of the park. Just, do you want this? Ooh. The bean has been in a contemplative mood all day, so maybe the packaging will get her out of her funk. She's been fine, she's just felt like being sedate, which is really weird. And it's really weird, and it's also an unwanted reminder of how fast time passes for dogs. She's a year old. And you think, a year old, that's still a baby, but because you're thinking in terms of a creature that lives to 80. A creature that lives to 12, a year old is significantly longer. It's weird to think that this little dog who bounces off the walls and bites everything and is super hyper all the time, it's weird to think that in what I consider to be very little time at all, she will mostly just hang out. She's already starting to do that. But anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, this is a knock out of the park. This is from Yale. This is a field guide to Cape Cod, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and the islands. Incredible. Okay, so this is all the birds and beasts of Cape Cod. And this is going to be one of those instances where I will lovingly thumb through the book, but I already know every single detail of what is in here. I've spent so much time on the Cape and the Vineyard and Nantucket. I've spent so much time there and most of that time has been spent specifically hanging out or seeking out the animal life. That I already know the people who are going to be in here. I'm curious to know. I should just flip through this very cursorily. I won't get caught up in it, or you'll never see me again. But I'm wondering. Usually in guides like this, bats are left out entirely. They're just completely excluded from it. And I that always bothers me. See, this has even flowers in it, but I'd be willing to bet that this won't have bats in it. Even though there are plenty, and there are some that have made quite a long-standing home on Nantucket, for instance. I'll have to go through here. This is all in black and white, and I'm just assuming that the finished book comes out in the new year. I'm assuming the finished book will all be in color. Boy, oh boy, though, how wonderful! Okay, what a way to start. All right, let's see what this next one is. Okay. All right, great. This is Damien Vitanza. This is translated This Life or the Next. It's about Islamic extremism. It's translated by Tanya Thresher from... Is it Arabic that it's translated from? I'm not completely sure. Oh. No? No, I don't think so. I think it was translated from the Norwegian. Damien Vitanza is a playwright and novelist who has conducted numerous writing workshops, including one for the inmates of Halden Prison in Norway. He is the author of Sub Rosa and the award-winning novel Urak. This Life or the Next is Damien's third novel and his first to be translated into English. And if I remember correctly, this is all about disaffected youth whose disaffection is weaponized against him as an enlistment tool for radical Islam. Yes, okay, he teaches a workshop. Yes, indeed. The story centers on Tariq Khan, a Pakistani born and raised in Norway, as he reflects on his journey to Syria and the defining moments that led him there. Tariq is an outsider in his own country, adrift between two worlds divided by class, race, and culture. Alongside a flock of other streetwise young men, each looking for direction and each easily susceptible, he finds his cause in the Muslim revival. Idealistic, driven by faith, and empowered with purpose, he's drawn to radical Islam. It's only when he enlists in the war that Tariq's eyes are truly opened. Dispirited with the violence, faced with the consequences of his choices, and increasingly distanced from the brutalities of jihad, Tariq is entirely alone in his spiritual struggle. Aside from the headline-grabbing modern twist, it sounds like a kind of an old-fashioned idea of a novel of ideas, a novel of solitary personality. Pretty daring, and not the author's first novel. I'll have to keep that in mind. So this comes out, this is Amazon Crossing. I probably don't need to say that anymore. It seems to me like most of the most daring translations that are being done on the mainstream press in America are being done by Amazon Crossing. And I've been tremendously impressed by some of what they've done. So I'm going to this with high hopes. Great. All right, now let's move on. We've got 2 more packages to start, and this puny little mail haul will be over. What is this next one? Oh my. Okay, this is also an October book, and also from Yale, but this is Egghead material. Good Lord. What a cover. Okay, this is by Lauren Winner, and it is The Dangers of Christian Practice. And the subtitle is On Wayward Gifts, Characteristic Damage, and Sin. Sometimes, beloved and treasured Christian practices go horrifyingly wrong, extending violence rather than promoting its healing. In this bracing book, the author provocatively challenges the assumption that the church possesses a set of immaculate practices that will definitionally train Christians in virtue, and that can't be answerable to their own histories. Is there, for instance, an account of a prayer that has anything useful to say about a slave-owning woman's praying for her slave's obedience? Is there a robustly theological account of the Eucharist that connects the Eucharist goods to the sacrament's central role in medieval Christian murder of Jews? What is the bad note there? There's a bad note in both of those examples. A Christian woman praying for her slave's obedience and the role of the Eucharist in anti-Semitic pogroms in the Middle Ages. Something's bothering me about both of those. I'll have to figure out what it is. Well, I'll read the book, because this is almost certainly an October book. Yeah, this is an October book. Arguing that practices are deformed in ways that are characteristic of and intrinsic to the practices themselves. No. Maybe that's what's bothering me. Let's go over that again. Arguing that practices are deformed in ways that are characteristic of and intrinsic to the practices themselves. No one makes a deformed practice. Okay. The author proposes that the register in which Christians might best think about the Eucharist, prayer, and baptism is that of damaged gift. Christians go on with these practices because, though blighted by sin, they remain gifts from God, who does not give damaged gifts. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. We see on this channel many, many times new books that Steve is squealingly eager to dive right into. And we see plenty of books on this channel where I read the pub sheet, which is not necessarily authored by the author, and I read about the book a little, and I am irritated. And I tell you all, I joke, but it's true, that I'm going to go in arguing with the author, and we're going to have a fine argument from beginning to end. This is neither of those. This is that rarest of rare things where I am just purely intrigued. All of my antennae are up and at maximum attention, but I am purely intrigued. Who is this author? An associate professor of Christian spirituality at Duke University and the author of a bunch of other books. Okay. All right. I want to drop everything and read this now. I am not arguing with the author, and I am not squealing. Instead, I am... These are serious and complex questions. I just have to hope that the author gives them their due, because I do. And I'm not going to want to get 40 pages into this book and suddenly see straw men appearing. I want to get to it right away. All right, let's move on. This is our last book. And that is Bean in the background. There she is. Look at that face. That's all that anybody's going to care about. Let's do this last book here. Oh, oh, fantastic. Okay, this is another example of what we saw exclusively yesterday. This is a finished copy of a book that I have an advance copy from for October. Boy, oh boy, October is just a nightmare. It is more books than I can possibly review, and it's almost more books than I can read. So this is due in the first week of October. Yikes. This is BSV, Before Silicon Valley, A People's History of Computing in the United States. Is that actually what it's called? No. No, okay, that's... This pub sheet might be a little bit off. The book is simply called A People's History of Computing in the United States. It has old code on the cover. I wonder if this was once going to be called BSV, Before Silicon Valley. I don't know. Silicon Valley gets all the credit for digital creativity, but this account of the pre-PC world, when computing meant more than using mature consumer technology, challenges that triumphalism. The invention of the personal computer liberated users from corporate mainframes and brought computing into homes. But throughout the 1960s and 70s, a diverse group of teachers and students working together on academic computing systems conducted many of the activities we now recognize as personal and social computing. Their networks were centered in New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Illinois, but they connected far-flung users. And this is a story of those very early days, those pioneering days. Wow. Okay. And the author is an assistant professor of history of science and technology at Michigan State University. And she has served as the technical consultant on tech documentaries. So, what's the matter, Bean? The floor is covered in garbage, but the one thing she always wants is the one thing that's out of reach, so she needs help. Well, okay, all right. This is right around the corner. It's 1 week left in September. This is right around the corner. All of these things are. So that is our mail haul. It's short, but it was fun. We have People's History of Computing in the United States. We have The Dangers of Christian Practice, which goes on the reading list for tonight. We have This Life or the Next, the latest from Amazon Crossing, a new translated work. And then for the new year, we have a field guide to Cape Cod, all of the wildlife of Cape Cod and Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and the various satellite islands, every single inch of which I have tramped over. Every single inch of which. So if you holiday on Martha's Vineyard next summer and you take your bike out or drive to a far beach somewhere and you're walking around in the coves and you look at a big rock that's half buried in sand with the water sloshing in and out, every inch of that rock I have touched. Every inch of that ground. On the way there, every inch, you look way over there in the distance, you see a hill of dune grass with another rock or a log or a rusting bicycle. I have been there. It's probably my bicycle. So it's going to be a lot of fun to look through this, but not until the new year. So that's it. That is it for now. But I'll be seeing you soon. We have plenty of other bookish stuff to talk about. So I will wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.